All right, Andy, let's switch gears now and talk about the other big South American team who did not fare well in the quarterfinal compared to Argentina. Brazil crashed out. They lost to Croatia on penalty kicks. Another huge shock went to extra time. Obviously, Brazil went ahead with Neymar, that great individual goal. Petkovic obviously popping up with 3 minutes from time in extra time, 117th minute to take it to penalties. And it really just seemed to knock the stuffing out of Brazil. I didn't expect it. As soon as they went 1-0 up, they were like, oh, we've got this in the bag. This is it. The fans are going crazy. The players are smiling. And just couldn't see it out. They just couldn't see it out in the second half of extra time. So obviously losing on penalty kicks is awful. And then the manager, Chiche, obviously is announced he's stepping down, which we kind of expected anyway. But this is a big change now for this Brazilian team. Had a lot of experienced players, a lot of good young players, though. So it's not all doom and gloom for the future. But what for you went wrong for the Selecao in this tournament? What was the big problem that meant that they crashed out in the quarterfinals? It doesn't have to be a big problem, but
yeah,
they were the red hot favorites for a reason, right? And they just didn't seem to turn up consistently during games at the World Cup.
Yeah, I think when you're that heavily favored or just that highly thought of going into a tournament and you don't even make it to the semis, something has gone pretty drastically wrong. We talked a little bit during the watch along we did for the Argentina-Netherlands game. Rafinha was an interesting, nailed on every game starter for this team. And I don't know, it seemed a little interesting. It was fine while it was working. And then, I think once the rest of the team wasn't creating and producing the way that they had been, I think it became a little more apparent, like, oh, okay, well, that's probably the weakest link out there. And so I think there's some questions about that. I also think the midfield, they just never, ever settled on who was going to play alongside Casemiro. I know Lucas Paqueta played most of the tournament, but it's not who I would have gone with. It's just, that is such a strange midfield combo that he stepped all over Neymar's feet. They're operating in the same spaces. The great thing about Neymar playing in that role is he's going to come deep and get the ball and drive forward. And it just, I don't know, it never felt like they fully got on the same page, I guess, at this tournament. And it showed how much talent that they had, that they did well in the group stage and got out and they breezed through the round of 16. But talent only takes you so far when you come up against a true team, and that's exactly what Croatia are and have been for a number of years now.
Yeah, for Brazil, it just seemed to me that they were just really top heavy in this tournament. They were just so reliant on Casemiro. He'll plug the gaps, and then we'll somehow get the ball up to Neymar, Vinicius, Richarlison, Rafinha. I mean, those guys all started in the quarterfinal defeat to Croatia, and when I looked at the team sheet, it was like, oh, this is really exciting. But when you actually think about it in reality, right, it's It's like
the reason anytime we do a best 11, I try to make a functional team, because you can just throw all the best attacking talent into a team, the best attacking fullbacks, center backs that score goals with headers, and it doesn't make it a good team.
Exactly. So it was really, I guess we got so focused and fixated on how many great attacking players they had, and like the players who weren't even playing, like Anthony, Rodrigo, Gabriel Martinelli. Obviously, Gabriel Jesus was injured, but played a little part as well. So they had so many great attacking players, but it just never seemed to be a plan other than we'll get it in the final third and then hope one of those brilliant players does somewhere. They had so many great left-sided attacking players, but on the right, like you mentioned, Rafinha, it was just really off kilter, off balanced. And that to me seemed to be something we all probably overlooked, maybe even the Brazilian manager himself, right? Just thinking, oh, it'll be okay. We'll figure it out. We'll kind of put everyone together and they won't have a set position. But as you said, when you're coming up against team units who are pinning you back and making you work hard defensively, you need to have some kind of structure to the team.
The more I think about it, is it not strange that Gabby Jesus didn't have a bigger role in this team before he got hurt? Because that is kind of the player that
on the right, and he operated down the right for Brazil an awful lot as well. And you think that's like they were missing that hard, not saying the others weren't hard working, but they're just more industrious kind of piece that would help gel all the playmakers that they have together.
I'd have him through the middle. And obviously that moves Richarlison around, who's best coming off the left. Like you said, they had so many good left-sided attackers. I don't think you take Vinicius out of there to get him in, but I think I probably, and I I'm going to say this. I think I probably would have started Gabby Jesus, the Arsenal forward, over Richarlison, the Spurs. I just think fit wise, that's kind of what they needed. They needed someone who was going to be much more of a really technical, precise operator in the
Yeah.
penalty area because there was not going to be a lot of space for whoever the center forward was, and that's just not the job for Richarlison.
No, and that's what he does for Arsenal, right? When you look very similar
Yep.
to their other attacking players, knits it all together. And I think as well, a shout out for Fred. He probably should have played more as well. He's been decent for Man United this
Yeah.
season. Would give them a more robust kind of
Mm.
midfield, and probably should have played ahead of Lucas Paqueta a
Well,
lot
and a
more.
little bit of time playing with Casemiro too.
Yeah, exactly. So, we can all be the Monday morning quarterbacks and coaches now, right? But the
Yeah.
fact of the matter is, 4 of the last 5 World Cups that Brazil have gone to now, they've gone out in the quarterfinals. They haven't won it since 2002. So by the time the next World Cup rolls around, that's nearly a quarter of a century without Brazil winning the World Cup, which is pretty crazy to me. But is there any kind of bigger picture issue that you see here with them? Is it... I'm trying to think, because they're fantastic individual players, and we know that they're always in South America going to be challenged with Argentina for Copa America each time that rolls around. But it just seems when they get into the World Cup over the last decade, 2 decades now, they're stumbling when they're coming up against some stubborn teams, mostly from Europe, who are just causing them problems and maybe cause them to doubt themselves a little bit. So I don't know, how do they change that? Is that something you can change, or are you just dependent on the players and group of players you actually have at the international level?
Yeah, the international game is so difficult because we can say what's wrong with Brazil, and what we really mean is what's wrong with the 26 players that were on this team for this very specific tournament. And so I don't think structurally or like player pool talent wise there is any issue. I just think that the U.S. had the same problem at center forward, and to an extent at center back, is if you don't have a player in every single position to make a full cohesive unit, you're going to struggle internationally. There's too much talent on other teams, and especially, again, you come up against a team like Croatia. And I'm looking down the roster here now. A little shout out for our guy Nick, who's not with us today. Why did Bruno not get a bit of time out there in the midfield? Like Bruno as that midfield worker and shuttler in front of Casemiro, linking up. Like, I don't know. It must be the best and the worst job in the world to be Brazil manager, because you've got all that talent, but then you've got people like us, as soon as something goes bad, second guessing every single thing you did. So you can't win no matter what.
Yeah, it is a tough job, but someone else is going to be doing it now, and let's see what kind of differences tactically they bring. Or feel like Thiago Silva, maybe Casemiro, obviously Dani Alves. There's a lot of players that are going to be moving out of this team. A lot of experience is going to be lost, but there is still a really good generation of Brazilian players coming through. So they'll be disappointed, of course, with this World Cup, given they were such heavy favourites, but future's still looking pretty bright for Brazil. So just a few tweaks, a few tactical, philosophical changes from a new manager, whoever comes in, and I think they'll be right up there the next World Cup challenging. But yeah, certainly a shock that they went out to Croatia the way they went out. That is for certain. Head over to Pro Soccer Talk on NBCSports.com for all the latest fallout from Brazil's defeat to Croatia, what it means next for them. Chichi's out. Let's see what's coming up for Brazil, but a very interesting time for the Selecao, and let's see. It's hard to feel too sorry for them with all the great players they have, but there'll be a lot of sadness in Brazil at that showing at the World Cup and getting knocked out at the quarterfinal stage. I don't think any of us had that. I certainly didn't have that in my bracket, and another big shock at this World Cup.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host for NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch more videos all season long. For even more Premier League content, from original series to live matches, head over to Peacock, and be sure to tune in for Premier League mornings every weekend on USA Network and on Peacock. We will see you over there.